Thank you. I'm starting. Okay. It's 25 years ago that we transformed in the city of Breda, the oldest park of the city. And that was because the park was in a downfall and we tried to give it a new rise. You can see the Renaissance structure of the park in the 16th century, the Romantic version landscape style in the 19th century, and then finally the more modern concept in which we transformed it. It's like a kind of retrospective to me because it has been a long time ago, and in those days, 25 years, it looks not much, but we did not do much digital. So there is very little material now left to show you how we actually did the transformation. Well, it is an important story because all the European towns have parks in their inner cities. And I think it's a very important theme. Nowadays, we were seeing children play this morning, and we've seen people going outdoor to work on their health. These parks are very important, but they are also very difficult to maintain and to keep them in touch with the needs of the city. The Valkenberg, the park I'm going to explain, is starting 5 centuries ago. I'm thinking about making a park. There's no scientific theory. There's not a roadmap to do that. In my opinion, it's more like cooking a meal with a good recipe, and only chefs have good recipes. So you have to look for a good chef, for somebody who knows, who understands all the parameters that are involved. It's about social density. It's about the political governance of a city. It's about the economic prosperity. It deals a lot with craftsmanship, which is not only learned at school, but is a talent in itself. And it deals about physical conditions of the site. It has to do with urban planning, many more. In this specific case, we also had a crossover to archaeology because the site was in the Neolithicum already occupied. And there was this art history piece, the Renaissance and the Hercules, who was standing in the Renaissance garden, the Romanticism, the landscape style, and modernity. The city of Breda had an urgency. They wanted to stop the growing number of crimes like robberies and sexual harassment in the park. That was the fall. And I tried to explain you how come that this fall was there and how we stopped it. The goal was ambitiously to have families with children return to the park and feel at ease there. The Valkenberg is also a growing park. Each time a little surface is added to the park, and the usage is becoming bigger and bigger. But beware, there can always be a new downfall. The park is a meeting place. All European red-haired people are gathered in the park. The meaning of a park is that it is free. It is expressing freedom for everyone. It's interaction. and there are events. And one of the simple rules that I like to pronounce is that if you use the park for an event, you may write with chalk on the school board, and then you wipe it clean again. If you don't do, the park will degrade, and that's not what you want. Corona has learned us that outdoor space and health came together, as we've seen in the lecture of Hungary as well. And I have a beautiful picture of somebody who cannot go to the gym or the fitness and is exercising now in the park, all alone. The rise of a park, it had to do, in my opinion, with craftsmanship. We took the best landscape architect of the country. That's extremely important, because then you get the best recipe for the cooking. I was very engaged as a landscape architect with civil engineering, because it is the basic of all our urban space. So we wanted a very good irrigation system to keep up the grass, and to make sure it would be a green environment. And we wanted the best asphalt we could make for walking, skating, but also for heavy traffic like beer trucks or fire trucks. And to my surprise, the asphalt is still there, and it has no degradation at the moment. And then maintenance is very important. So we made a very high investment to provide low yearly costs. It's easy to say, but it's a hard struggle. I hate parks that are fully, which are not maintained and have a deplored aspect. You see, the park can be very crowded, and people leave their litter and all things like that. And there is a guy who keeps it clean. That's very important. Let's go back to the roots of Breda. Where's the park originating? You see this oval, the red oval is the place of the inner city of Breda, the medieval city. It's near the river, and the river comes from the south, Flanders, and streams with a high velocity, and then comes into the delta, the Dutch delta, and it goes meandering, and the velocity of the water is slowing down very much. So this was the perfect place, and the last place you could come with a boat and transport all kind of goods. So at the hilly side near the river, there was already a Neolithic settlement which was growing and became a big fortress. And you can see the green dots are the park we are talking about. It was essentially a separate Renaissance garden, separate from the castle, which is nearby. The castle, after the French captured the Netherlands, the castle became a military academy, and the garden fell loose and was transformed into a romantic park. Like was done in the 19th century, very often. If you look close to this design, you can see that almost everything has changed and transformed. The ramparts of the city are now about here in the park, and the high bridge is exactly on the place of the old Belvedere, which could look out over the landscape in the north. This landscape style is interesting because when you come in, you can go right or left, but you never walk straight. Like here, you can go right or left, and then you see these lines drawn by the designer to indicate that there are different views. Like you come here, you come around the bushes and you see the bridge. And this is done to let people walk and talk. It's like a pretzel. And that's also the start of the fall of this park. Here are some. Well, I don't have time to explain so much about it. The only survivor is Hercules. Hercules was there in the Renaissance garden in one of these carrés, and this one, and he survived all these transformations. He was standing a bit loose in the shrubs in the romantic garden because there was not a specific place for such a statue. Then we brought the original one to the museum and we made a replica. And since we have the modern park, I believe the Hercules has been decapitated once. So this is already a new replica from an Italian master. And at King's Day, there's always a kind of a joke with a Hercules. So it's not the original Hercules, but he survives all the time. He is, how you call it, copied. The romantic park was made in the 19th century when the fortress was dismantled. Warfare was not working with fortresses anymore, so the city got out of this burden and got new boundaries. One of the new boundaries was a canal around the city, picking up all the little rivers that came to the city and expelling finally the water, so that there could be a new build in a city with a lot more space. In that time also the railway was built and the station was positioned north of the city. And you can imagine that this urban planning, these streets with a railway station, was meant to make a connection to the inner city. You can see here the station, railway station, a new promenade, going to this romantic park, and then connecting the inner city. This is, of course, you can imagine that the park, as I mentioned, was not designed for this say the pedestrian way to go from the city to the railway station. This is the promenade with the bridge. This is one of the entrances of the park. After the Second World War, the park has been made more like a place for exhibitions, horticultural things, pergolas, all very vulnerable in a public park. And the the degradation came because all these things were nice to see, but the park was already part of a very much bigger urban scheme, and it was not nice to walk these romantic paths. They grew full of shrubs, full of trees, and the park became a place for crimes. So we started with transforming the park and make it part of the urban scheme, the railway station above, the city below. And the main routes were articulated in the landscape style, but the designer found it possible to have this kind of pretzel style of the romantic park design in his new design as well. So it is a park you can go fast to your destination, but you can also walk and talk, relax in the rest of the park. We had discussions with the police then, and the police said, you don't want all these spots of light in the park, because the romantic park had along all the paths street lights, and they said you shouldn't have all these lights, because when there's lights, people gather, they want to see each other, but they make groups, and it feels very threatening when you walk by night or evening through the park and you see all these kind of groups. So we make the park without light, and only the two main roads will fully lighten, and we'll have a zone along the paths which is free of shrubs, so that nobody can hide in the direct surroundings. Part of bringing the families back to the park was to restore, was to make places where you can eat and drink, but only during daytime. On the left is a photo, miserable photo of the fence. Well, it's not a fence, it's a very low hedge indeed, which gave the park not a kind of a border. So we made a fence with gates. They are always open. It has no meaning at all, because the only meaning is that when you pass the gate, you come into a park. And it's essential, there's an essential difference between this low hedge, and you can watch from your car already into the park, and the gate. The gate is like a moment of Zen. You go from the urban space city to a green space area. And you see that people are changing their behavior. Some old parts have been restored, and you see this pedestrian, the 19th century promenade is now a large bridge, and this whole pedestrian area goes into the park. The park has been, after the transformation, very much used with music events, with art events with the selling of your garage stuff on King's Day. And during Corona time, it was a very high place which was very highly frequented. You can see the Corona circles of 1.5 meter, which are now in the meantime a little bit ridiculous, but it's a very contemporary picture of how it was during Corona time. The Valkenberg is part of is in fact, because this is a kind of a green corridor of the city, it's part of that. And in the 90s, we also have built in Breda a new neighborhood, very green. We call it a campus. And then this is a military site, and this is also a military site which are given up by the minister. This one will be given up, sorry. This one will be given up by the Ministry of Defense and handed over to the city. And now there's a beautiful possibility to what we've done in the Park Valkenberg to make it again on the other side of the inner city, so that this green roundabout has more objects to visit and to give the people of the town more green space. That is necessary because the towns in the Netherlands are rapidly growing. We have a very high necessity of building capacity for living. So it is important that you also make the controversy, the opposite direction, make more open space so that the density will be relaxed in green space. Yeah, the fall of a park, it's strange, this retrospective for me, because I see in the park now things coming like a new king, a new tree, China promotion, a pavilion. Then they are closing the shelter for drug addicts, and I see them now gathering in the park, and it likes as if it starts all over again. Maybe we need a new cleanup, and this is the tree for their king. And when I was making this lecture, there was an article in the local newspaper saying that the Valkenberg Park is a dumping place for pieces of art. If you want nowadays make a statement, a monument, a Chinese gift, needs a place for that, you automatically find it in the Valkenberg. It's a kind of reflex, and that's to me one of the threats of the park, that what we wanted to do was to make a free space, this school board. It's everybody's space, and you may temporarily possess it, but not definitely. So I got a feeling we need a strong park director to stop this. I hope I gave you some inspiration with my lecture, and I hope there are some questions to answer. Thank you.